You are listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I am your host, Celine Yeager. Each week, I bring you advice from athletes, scientists, researchers, and other experts to help you feel and perform your best no matter what your hormones are doing. This show is a production of Feisty Media. Hello, strong, feisty women. I hope you all are well. So I have a lovely and kind of quiet, if that's the right word, conversation for you this week. I have been interested in talking to someone who does menopause coaching. Like, what exactly is that? What do you do? How does it work? And as luck would have it, I met a woman named Sara Larson who indeed does menopause coaching. And she also does mental fitness coaching. And like me, loves to stand up paddleboard and being outdoors. And she also has 2 Masters of Arts degrees in outdoor education and religion and outdoor ministry. And this conversation goes into all of it. And I've got to say that 6 years into this show, sometimes I still feel like I know less now than I did when I began. Because sure, I know way more about the biology and physiology of menopause and all of the assorted therapies. But when it comes to what women go through and what that looks like, I am still learning so much every single day. And the one thing that I do feel like I know for certain, which comes up in this conversation, is that menopause changes us. Which maybe is why they called it the change back in the day. And I used to think that was kind of a dumb term, if I'm honest, but there is a change, and it's an important one, and one that can lead us, if we let it, I think, to our truest selves. We just have to get through it. And women like Sara are here to help, and I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Before we get to it, give us a follow at Feisty Menopause on Instagram and Facebook. Come on into our private Hit Play, Not Pause Facebook group and have these conversations 24/7. Head into the show notes and sign up for my free Feisty 40+ newsletter with all the training and nutrition and all the other news you can use. And if you like the show, please do share it with a friend. Drop it some stars wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us continue to grow and for others to find us in what has become a very, very crowded podcast space. Finally, very quick thanks to Cozy Earth for their support of the show. I love curling up in their sheets and blankets and PJs, and I know you will too, so check them out in the show notes. And with that, enough of me. Let's have a few words about those awesome sponsors and get on with the show. Sara, welcome to Hit Play Not Pause. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
So before I hit record, I was just saying you have a fascinating background. Like you have an MA in religion and outdoor ministry, and wilderness first responder, paddleboard company owner, mental fitness coach, menopause coach. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
But I want to talk about how you got here into the menopause coaching space specifically. And are you 50? Yeah. Are you postmenopause? Where are you in the journey?
I turned 50 and 10 months in.
The clock is ticking down. May it not restart.
I know. Please don't restart. Yeah, so I am 50. I turned 50 in October.
And how has the journey been?
Horrific, which is why I'm here. Yeah, so like I joke all the time that my work history reads a little bit like a ferret on crack. I have bounced around and done a lot of different wonderful, amazing, and interesting things that regardless of degree, job, or title have always bent me back around towards working with women. When I was a youth director, I ended up kind of accidentally working with a lot of the moms of my kids. When I moved to a different job, I ended up training women on paddleboarding. I thought I was just going to sell paddleboards. So everything that I do keeps bending me back towards being in space with women, which is truly one of my favorite places to be and to stand. So in my mid 40s, I had little kids. I had a paddleboard company that I was really running because I wanted something that would keep me home. I'd been a guide doing backcountry wilderness guiding before that, and being away from the kids for 7 to 10 days just wasn't something I really wanted to do. So I bought this paddleboard company and then also was really evaluating, do I want to go back to school and get a degree as a therapist? Or I kept having people tell me about life coaching. They're like, I think you'd really like it. It's kind of what you do all the time anyway. So give it a try. So I ended up going to get my life coaching certification. And at the time, was working through, my dad had Alzheimer's. He passed away now 13 years ago. And I was very passionate about working with women who were finding themselves in that sandwich generation where they had kids at home, or even if they didn't, but younger than anticipated, were navigating aging parents and what all of that entails. So that was the focus of my coaching originally, but then simultaneously, my health went to hell. I have been active and fit my whole life, but I couldn't recover from workouts. I was having crushing joint pain. That was unexplainable. I joined an Alzheimer's research study because I was convinced I had early onset Alzheimer's because I couldn't, it was like my brain just stopped functioning. And again, as somebody who could finish 150 things and do 7 things at a time, all of a sudden I just felt incapable of doing the most simple tasks. That on top of, I developed anxiety, which I'd never had, and to the point where I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. That really rolled into pretty severe depression. And I just kept going to the doctor being like, something's terribly wrong. I don't know what's wrong. I feel miserable. Somebody help. And at one point, probably 4 or 5 years into this, I asked my doctor, could this be menopause? Could I just be going through menopause early? And mind you, I'm like 46, 47 at this point. She's like, no, you're way too young.
Jesus, every time I hear that.
Right? And then around the same time, I was on Instagram and I saw this post and it was the 32 symptoms of menopause. And I started reading the list and I was like, holy shit. I called my husband and I was like, babe, I'm just reading this post right now and there's 32 symptoms of perimenopause and I have 94 of them. So I just started a deep dive. I was like, well, I need to learn about this. I discovered the National Menopause Society. I jumped headfirst into that. I started doing research. I love research. Clearly, I have 2 different master's degrees. But I just dug deep. I was like, what can I learn about it? And went to the Menopause Society conferences, started going to other events, which is where I've gotten to meet you. And I just pivoted. As I was coaching, I'm like, all the women I'm working with are in the thick of this also, and none of them have a clue what's happening. So here I am.
What did you do? Are you still suffering? And if you are, then there's no answer to the second part of that, which is what did you do to help yourself?
I've done a lot. I initially just tried to do as many interventions as possible. I started lifting heavy. I got a trainer. I've probably spent half of my kids' future college tuition on supplements and stuff, trying anything that, especially in the early stages. I was like, I'll try anything. I'm so desperate to feel better. And then eventually ended up going on menopause hormone therapy, which changed everything. I'm one of the lucky people for whom it's working. And I've had to do a bunch of adapting.
I was going to ask that because it is tricky in the... How was that process? What did you start with and where did you land?
I started at the lowest dose, the 0.25 patch and 100 milligrams of progesterone. And that really tamed the anxiety. I ended up going off my anxiety meds for a while because it just was working and it really helped with the joint pain. And then like 6 months in, I felt like stuff was coming back. So I went up in dose, and now I'm at 0.075 and 200 milligrams of progesterone, and that seems to be kind of leveling again. But it is interesting, and I think this has been the point of passion with my coaching business, is we're just over and over and over sold this empty promise by 1,000 different people, ideas, and internet efforts. We're sold all this promise that there's like a quick fix. There's something you can do, and then it'll solve your problems, and then you'll just go through menopause and everything will be fine. And for most of us, that's not our experience. It's an ever-changing, constantly morphing experience that's exhausting, and trying to figure out how to navigate that, it sometimes feels like a full-time job.
Yeah, it's so interesting. When I started this in 2020, so 6 years ago, you didn't have women in perimenopause on traditional hormone therapy as much, and there's a reason for that. Like, doctors would be like, no, you're already making hormones. It's hard to layer hormones on top of hormones a lot of times, and they still will, give a birth control pill instead to sort of quiet the ovaries and put in hormones, so at least you have a steady state. And I had on Dr. Heather Hirsch, who was very, very honest about it. She's like, it's not easy. This new trying to give perimenopausal women hormone therapy. I mean, some of them land and stabilize, and others, like, it does. It's like shifting ground under your feet, and it is difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And some women, for reasons that they have that are personal, feel really strongly about not trying some things and wanting to try other things. And I mean, I think we have a general problem of not listening to women. So a big piece of my conversations with clients is learning to trust yourself, being open to getting education about all of the options available, but also understanding that, like, you get to be an autonomous human being who makes decisions about your body. And if we're going to take care of you well, that means listening to you and just believing you.
So what does that look like when you're doing menopause coaching? Like, if I come to you, what is the process? And you must also use your mental fitness coaching as part of that.
Yeah, I wouldn't survive without that either. It looks a variety of different ways for different women. The most popular program that I have is called Walk In Ready, and it's a very simple process. I meet with you 2 times before you go see a physician and just get you up to date. Like, let's get really clear about the symptoms you have, how they're affecting you, things that get better, what makes it worse, how long you've been experiencing it. We just get really clear about your symptoms and what's happening to you, and get you adept at communicating that to the doctor when you get in the office. Because the thing I keep hearing from doctors is they just don't have time. You have 17 minutes, if they're lucky, with a patient, and they can't cover all of the education about menopause in that appointment, plus figure out how to get a treatment option that resonates. So the goal is to, like, bridge that gap. So I meet with them twice before the doctor's appointment. They walk in with a cheat sheet, so they don't have to worry about brain fog or remembering anything. And then I meet with them for a half hour a week or so after the appointment, just to be like, how to feel, how to go. Do you understand what was suggested? And that came out of, I was having a conversation with a woman at a bar, and she was like, yeah, I just got on this patch thing. I don't really know what it is. But then he gave me a pill, and I don't like pills, so I just didn't take it.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh, honey.
Oh, we need the pill.
We need the pill. So I told her about it, and she's like, well, no one even said anything. He just said you take one of these at night and you put the patch on, and then you're good to go. Yeah. And then I have another woman who did a discovery call, and she was having all kinds of genitourinary syndrome symptoms. And she's like, well, I went to the doctor and they gave me these. And she pulled up 3 tubes of estrogen cream, vaginal estrogen cream. And she's like, but I don't really know where to put it. So she'd never used it. She just kept getting the refills and was never putting it on. So that's a big thing. I mean, that's honestly most of what I do. And then I do have other clients that I work with long term who are just struggling and need someone to walk alongside them. They can check in with me when they need extra help or if they do have an appointment, and I can kind of help them understand what's happening and what the instructions are, and just life coach. Like life's hard, it's busy and crazy. So I walk
Yeah,
alongside that.
it's funny because what you are describing is something that I hear a lot in not necessarily my group, because my group is sort of like us. They're very interested in being informed and they're educating themselves and they're really diving into everything, which is great. But I have extraordinarily intelligent friends, who aren't engaged with that. They want to feel better, but they're not engaged in the same way. You know what I mean? So they will get something from their doctor and kind of half listen or whatever in what you're describing. Like they don't really know. But if they did have an understanding of that, it would be better for them.
Absolutely. I think there is a real disconnect. You go to all these events too, right? You get a bunch of women who are hungry to know and understand what's happening. And then you have a bunch of amazing speakers who teach you all this great information that we should all know. And for some reason, we don't. Well, we know why. And then afterwards, I wander around and I talk to women and I say, well, how was it? What did you think? Was it a great event? And they're like, I loved it. It was amazing. I learned so much. I'm like, great. So what's your next steps? They're like, I have no fucking clue. I don't know what to do. How do I find help? How do I find somebody?
Yeah, how much of your practice is just helping them find help?
Yeah, I've even debated changing my title on my my webpage, sorry, from menopause coach to menopause navigator. Because that's more of what I'm doing is just helping women weed through all the confusion and the noise and help them find a sense of their center. Like I get that Jane, your girlfriend, ran a marathon and took Black Cohosh and never had a hot flash, and that's great. But you are likely going to have a very different experience and need different help.
Yeah. And where do you ever work your outdoor wilderness part into all of this?
That is the part that I'm just aching and longing for, honestly. I did do some really fun coaching calls where we hiked. And that was great. But that's on my short list. I really want to start doing some events, and I still have kids home, so eventually that'll come back into play. I know you guys do some of that really cool stuff, and Dr. Lisa Larkin's doing some stuff with her talks, and she did a trip that was really fun. So I know there's a desire for that, and I would love to get back into that part of my work because I miss it a lot.
What do you think the benefits of being in that outdoor space are for women in this part of their lives?
I know my own experience is that there's a grounding just that happens from being in wild spaces. And you don't have to drive 7 hours out of town to the wilderness to feel that. There's a grove that I walk in 6 blocks from my house, and the traffic noise disappears, and I don't bring my phone. And just hearing the wind in the trees, honestly, and touching earth makes a difference. When I was getting my experiential adventure ed degree, the question I was most curious to ask was, does wilderness experience change us? And more specifically, does it change how we feel in our skin? And is that measurable? So can we ask the question, how did you feel before going on this trip? Like, what was your body satisfaction? How did you sort of self-report feeling about how you look and feel and move? And then if you go on a trip, does that change? And even more importantly, does that change last because of that experience. And I was just getting started asking that question when I had babies and life took a different route. But I genuinely believe I was seeing a trend towards it changing how we feel and how we feel as embodied people. And I believe that that's a question worth chasing and asking because I think it changes us. I really do.
Talk more about that. How do you think it changes us?
I don't know. I'm a farm kid. I grew up on a pig farm in Southwest Minnesota. And being physical was just a part of my everyday life. So I never realized as I was getting older until I met people from completely different walks of life, of course, who never had that sense of physicality. And I'm not talking about like being able to bench press and deadlift and do extreme things, but I'm just talking about what it feels like to feel strong, to feel capable, to feel your body move and trust what it's doing. That to me was such a normal way of being human when I was young. And I realized a lot of women in particular don't have that experience. And when I would guide women and, we'd maybe have a particularly hard hiking day or we'd climb to a peak and some women really struggled getting to the top. But then you take your time, ease up, eventually get there and realize my body delivered. Like it showed up for me and we did this together. Oh, I get goosebumps even talking about it because women suddenly have a different way of knowing themselves. Like, look what I'm capable of. Look what my body does. So much of how we're trained to be as women is so performative. Like, does it look the way other people expect? Does it appeal to people? And hiking to the top of a mountain in shitty shoes and run-on shorts and being like, I got this. That's different. That's a different way of humaning.
And you're also looking outward more and not in, not like an inward in a different way, not sort of that observing yourself, like how you look. You know what I mean? But
right.
Yeah.
And just seeing beauty and just seeing nature and breathing in fresh air. And I don't know. As I'm talking about this, I'm like, okay, I need to plan a hiking trip. It's time to go. I gotta go.
Well, that's one of the things that I find uniquely centering about paddleboarding. There's something about it. Like the moment I stand up and drift out onto the river or the lake, I just feel different.
Yeah. And it is different to me than kayaking or canoeing, both of which I love.
Totally.
But there's like a walking on water feeling. I don't know if it's just because you're set apart and looking at I don't know what it is either. If I could figure out the language for that, I'd write a book about it.
Yeah, there's something very, very different about it. Because I've done both too. I've done kayaking and all that.
Yeah.
But like the moment I got on a paddleboard and went across the water that way, I was like, oh, like I need this regularly in my life.
Right.
It's very centering. So talk to me a bit about your thoughts on the spiritual journey of menopause.
My spiritual journey has done such a massive shifting. I really thought I was going to be a pastor. That's what I went to school for. I grew up in the Lutheran church here in Minnesota. And life had different plans, which I'm grateful for. I think the spiritual piece of menopause for me has been learning this really profound nuance between how I feel, what I'm thinking, but then also just how I'm observing the world around me. And that sense of meaning at those intersections has become, the only word I can really come up with is like so much deeper. It's not just about feeling good about something or chasing happiness or wanting to like something, right? It's about feeling a part of a, God, I don't even know. You've asked me a really hard question. It is being a part of something in a way that is both embodied and that I feel a confidence in expressing that I didn't have in my youth. I'm not afraid anymore of people's responses or reactions or how I'm perceived. Like it's like that part of my brain just kind of went quiet, which we know I think kind of happens to a lot of women during this transition. But what that frees you from is even your sense of spirituality or your sense of what you believe in. Even the performative part of that vanishes. It's like, who am I in the world? What am I contributing to the world around me? And what's my place in it? And that is a fun place to sit in as my own kind of badass version of myself. It feels different than it did when I was trying to find the meaning of life and answer all of life's profound questions. I'm less concerned with those answers. I'm more concerned with how's the person in front of me? How can I show up in a meaningful way for them and genuinely change the world with that conversation? Maybe my world's gotten smaller, but it also feels like the top's been kind of blown off of it.
So I'm hearing that you're more in service of others. Is that what you're saying?
I think for me, my own experience requires it, but not out of obligation. It requires it because that's how I change. That's how I grow. That's how I become a version of myself I like more. I've spent a good chunk of this perimenopausal journey crawling into a pretty deep, dark cave alone and staying there. And I can probably spend a ton of time judging myself for it or evaluating that, but being on the other side of that, it feels good to be in space with other people, and in particularly my role now, really being able to help women just be kinder and more graceful and gentler with themselves in the midst of all the chaos. That feels really good.
Did you find anything useful in the cave?
I learned a lot about what I don't want my life to look like. And I learned a stillness and a comfort with quiet that I'd lost for sure. You know, I I've definitely lived into this idea that like I have to have the clean house and the Instagram worthy pictures and I mean, even frankly, the Instagram worthy children. I've bought into all of that at periods of my life. And I think spending some time in that cave just eliminated a lot of that. It's okay to have company over and have a dirty house. Because if someone cares, they can go to someone else's house. You know, I hope they're coming to see me and spend time with me. So, yeah, there has been a releasing of a lot of that stuff that just in the past, I think, has made life feel busy but kind of empty.
What made you mean previously?
Yeah.
That, yeah.
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 Like the frantic cleaning and the frantic volunteering and just being so concerned with, am I doing enough? Am I enough? Am I doing this right? Am I doing it well enough? And when I just stopped being able to function, I recognized that there was just a value to being me as a human. And that the people who love me most, that's the only part that they're really looking for. They don't give two flying farts if my kitchen's dirty or clean or if I'm on all of these boards and, event planning. You just kind of let it all go.
You write on your site that you love getting older. Is this the
I
part that
do.
you, yeah, like talk to me about that because I think that's one of the things that people really struggle with, you know? I mean, it's not
Yes.
just there's the symptoms, but there's also the grief of like losing what you
Yes.
used to be and like what do you love about getting older?
Well, it's funny. I just like everyone, right? Like I was getting ready for this and I'm like, well, if I were to ever get Botox, I'd get it right there. So it's not like I don't struggle with the same things, but so the root of this for me is when I was little, my grandma loved quilting and she would have all these women over and they'd set up that big quilting square in her living room. And I was, of course, the only one in the room who had 20/20 vision because I was 8. And so she'd set me underneath the quilt where all these women would sit around and they just talked, just quilted, sewed, tied knots, chatted about life, about, sore knees and hips that were going out and husbands that were bugging them and kids that were growing up and leaving home. And there is something about that experience that for me just continues to resonate as something I get excited for. Like, I do girlfriends weekends with my college girlfriends, and, I just now we're talking about protein intake and whether creatine works and how much everything hurts. And I feel like those women, and I kind of love it. I'm just like, it just feels good to be known by people so well and so comfortably that you're sharing conversations about the most intimate things and everybody's in the same space. Everybody feels the same way. I also had this aunt, Stella, who I loved. She lived to be over 100. And I remember when I was young, I would sit next to her and stare at her wrinkles, that she had wrinkles here and on her neck. And I remember I would just stare at them. And I found them so striking. There was something about just who she was as a person, how she lived in the world, how she walked into her room. She was so regal and beautiful. And I associate that with her wrinkles. So I think I just like the idea. I like the idea of getting older and becoming someone like that for my daughter and her friends and somebody, I'm not going to age gracefully. Nothing about this is graceful, but I like the idea of growing old and teaching girls and other women just how to do it without apologizing.
When you work with women, what do you feel is the hardest part of this journey for them? Is there a thread that is common?
I think the grief you talked about, it's maybe the least overtly mentioned, but we all struggle, right? Whether it's our workouts don't feel the same, or we can't multitask the way we used to, or we're struggling at work because whatever, we're having hot flashes or we can't remember the name for a projector, right? And there's this for me, I know I experience as a disconnect with the person I'm really familiar with as I have been a younger, middle-aged adult. Plus, the reflection changes. The wrinkles show up. My hair's going totally gray. I have old lady kneecaps now. And I'd love to tell you I wasn't vain and that I didn't like feeling good in my own skin, but I'm changing that narrative for us as women it's hard. And I don't think it's supposed to be easy. I think there's value to be found from learning how to have the conversation and admitting the grief, admitting the sadness at moving into a different stage of life means saying goodbye to another one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the grief is the common thread. But if there's something that brings women to my door, it's usually weight gain So it's like this really,
Really?
yeah, it's this really interesting pivot. Like weight tends to be the thing that women are finally like, I'm done. I'm frustrated. I'm doing everything right. I gain 2 pounds a year no matter what I do, if not 20 to 40. And I'm pissed about it and I want to fix it. That's a lot of times the reason people finally call and say, I need help. But the deeper conversation is a grief, I think, over a way bigger change about that's occurring.
How do you help them navigate the weight?
I have a handful of dietitians, licensed dietitians and nutrition experts that I work with, and a lot of times refer. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. And I really know my lane. So I try to point every one of my clients in the direction of someone who can really help move them. And sometimes that's just reinforcing what they're doing with a trainer, or if they're on an exercise program, helping them understand what feels good and what doesn't. A lot of it is unraveling the noise of what they should be doing from what they can do and what their body actually responds to. Because so many women will read a book about how they're supposed to lift a certain way. So then they'll just start lifting a certain way and not see the changes they want and then feel like they're failing. So a lot of it's this kind of it's this continually unraveling women from the noise and the messaging that there's a solution that worked for someone, so the same solution will work for you. And if it's not working for you, you're doing it wrong, and that's your fault.
Are they responsive to that?
Yeah. I think some, want results faster. And in some cases, that means a different plan of action for them. And so I help them find that. But a lot of what I do is bringing in other experts to help with aspects of what my clients are navigating, whether that's sexual health physicians or doctors, OBs, pelvic floor therapists, mental health professionals. I have a really long list of people I call.
How long do they typically work with you?
Anywhere from one call to 3 to 4 years. I've had a
Wow.
couple clients that just keep coming back. I don't have a real strict protocol for that reason. I think a lot of women find help, things work for a while, and then something maybe shifts or changes and they need help again. So if you work with me, you don't have to have a call every week. You can call me tomorrow, and then if I don't talk to you for 3 months, it's fine with me. So there's no system, right? The system is your life, and I'm here to be both a guide and just a partner as you're navigating it.
Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you would want women to know about this transition and how you approach it?
I think a big thing is just letting go of the shoulding on ourselves. That you should do something this way, or you should try this, or it should work, or you should be successful. If there's one thing the onslaught of perimenopause has taught me, is that there's power in gentleness. There's strength in saying no and getting really good at learning what protecting yourself looks like, but also getting really good at advocating for what you want and learning how to do that, whether it's in a doctor's office, buying tickets at a show, filling up with gas at the gas tank. I think the skilled women have the advantage of being able to learn as we're releasing this sense of needing to be accepted everywhere. Is also getting really good at demanding the kind of care we want, the kind of treatment we want from other people. And in so doing, we're totally changing the narrative. I mean, you've been in this longer than I have. This is changing things. We see a lot of spikes and valleys that are all over the map, but people are talking about this in a way they just haven't done before. And as much as I wish I could control that conversation, so it's always like copacetic and lovely, it's never going to be, but at least we're talking about it. And that to me is really important.
You mean control the broader conversation?
Yeah. I mean, like, I would just love to save women from like all the confusing messaging, right? But I can't.
But there's no way it won't be confusing messaging.
Exactly.
Like that's an impossibility because humans are not test tubes. So you can't just always put 1 and 2 into a test tube and have 3. Like it doesn't work that way, right? So
Precisely.
I mean, I tend to be more generous in my mindset that I do think that most of the people that you see offering advice are genuine and giving the advice that they believe will,
I agree.
Will work. And it indeed does work for a lot of people, but it doesn't necessarily work for everyone. There's many ways up the mountain. That's my whole career has been.
Love
There's
that.
many ways up the mountain. And
Yes.
I really do believe that.
Absolutely. And that is never truer, right, than right now. I think, my dream would be just that it could be easier for women.
Yeah, I agree. I have a friend who's like very logical, and she's like, what is the evolutionary point of all of this? All of this,
Right.
and there's no great answer to why, the hot flashes and the sleepless nights and the night sweats and anxiety and all other 103 things, whatever we're up to now.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah, I don't know. But you do learn along the way and you become another person on the other side. And maybe that is the point. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think maybe just getting good at asking, what do I want? I mean, I can't tell you how many conversations I have with women, and I'll ask that question, well, what are you looking forward to? What do you want for this life as you're moving into a new stage? And I had one woman literally say, I don't deserve to have wants and needs. And
What
I
did
wish
you say to that?
I was speechless for a little bit. We had spent a lot of time unpacking that. But I think that's more common than we realize. I think a lot of us have spent so much of our life and we've been really good at it. We've taken care of so many people and we've met everybody's expectations and we have just showed up, dialed in, and gotten shit done. And we can ask for something different now moving forward, but we also have to learn how. And that's easier said than done.
Well, thank you for your gentle work that you do and assertive work that you do. And I hope that the next 2 months find you no surprises. And you get to...
You and me both.
You get to the other side.
Indeed. And I'm so grateful for this. I've been listening to this podcast for a few years now. And this is such an important and essential conversation. And I really respect and appreciate the graciousness you extend to this space. Because I do think there's a lot of arguing and fighting. And I understand people wanting to hold the line with things and manage and control. And I also think a lot of us are just trying to figure out how to help one another. So this is a platform where you are providing that for so many women, and I love it.
Well, right back at you. Thank you very
Thanks.
much for that because, not my nature.
No,
That's obvious.
it is in the best way.
Well, that is our show. Come on back next week when I sit down with menopause educator and researcher Andrea Donsky to talk all about her new book, Nourishing Menopause. So come on back for that one. And until then, as always, stay feisty. You have been listening to Hit Play Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active performance-minded women. I'm your host, Celine Yeager. This show is edited and produced by the most amazing Carrie Barrett and the other talented, strong women at Feisty Media. Follow us on social media at Feisty Menopause. And please help us spread the word. Screenshot and share this episode on your social media channels with the tag @FeistyMenopause. And please subscribe, like, review, and rate this show wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth and good reviews make it easier for other listeners to find. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay feisty.